Still work here in Grace. About 18 years ago, I was in college and ran across a couple guys in the multi-purpose room up at the gym, bashing on each other with sticks. And I ran in and said, "What is the class number and where do I sign up?" Turned out to be an extracurricular club, so I didn't have to burn up credit hours on it, and I kind of got hooked on it. About 12 years ago, myself along with a few other people broke off from the larger group I started with to form something that's more family friendly, and I've kept reenacting since then. And the reenactment's fun, but in the last 2 years, the United States has got involved in international competition, which started up over in Russia, Ukraine, Poland areas. And I've been on both U.S. teams that have traveled overseas and competed at what's called Battle of the Nations, which is the World Championships. I put a lot of time and effort into researching the period of history, the concepts, and thought processes. And the reason I'm here tonight is because we've all read Ephesians, and we've all put on the whole armor of God. But until you've actually worn some armor, you don't really understand what that is talking about. That passage actually outlines the majority of social structure of the Middle Ages. And so we're going to try and bring some of you guys into a little bit better understanding of this. Okay, so who has those scriptures with them? You have it on your phone? All right, who else has got it on their phone? All right, you do? All right, let's start with you. Okay, now, most people start at, I think it's Ephesians 10, is it, that they consider the whole armor of God?
Ephesians 6 is the last chapter.
Yeah, but, okay, Ephesians 6:10, isn't it, the verse 10? Start right at Ephesians 6:1, okay? And we're going to read out the verse, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. And we're going to have to bounce back and forth a little bit so you really understand. If you guys have any questions, let me know. We will have some time for you guys to get to handle and touch and feel things. And I do kind of want you to understand, too, there are many tens of thousands of dollars of equipment here. So I'm really fussy about it walking out of the general area. But it's not like you're going to hurt it. So you guys can handle it and have some fun. Okay? So let's go ahead and hear Ephesians 6:1.
Okay, so Ephesians what?
6:1.
Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
Talk really loud, because some of us get hit in the head walking. Okay.
Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
All right, this sounds so simple, doesn't it? You guys hear this every day of your life. Do what I tell you to do. Okay, but we're looking at a medieval social structure, okay? Girls, I want you to understand something. If you're of the nobility, especially, but even for the commoners, guess who gets to pick your husband? Is it you? No. It's your dad. Dad gets to pick who you marry. Now, do you want to have a little input on that? Yeah, probably. How many of you trust your dad to just pick the guy you're going to live with the rest of your life? None of you? Nobody trusts Dad enough? Okay, we've got one kind of, all right? Now,
She wants it right home.
okay. Now, think about this, though. If you've behaved all of your life, if you've obeyed your parents, what kind of a person is Dad going to go look for? Probably a pretty nice guy, right? Because he's going to care about you. Now, if you've been a little brat the whole time, what's the chances you're going to end up with a guy who smells like fish all night? Or, big heavy guy that farts a lot? Or the one with a nasty skin disease, right? This is important stuff. Guys, I want you to think about this, all right? You're going to start at about the age of 3 to 5 working with your father, all right? At 7 years old, you're going to become an apprentice, and you will spend every day learning the trade. It's basically your schooling, right? What happens if you don't do what you're told?
You might blow up.
I mean, think about this. What happens if you don't do exactly what you're told? You're dealing with saws, hammers, hitches, horse tack, a lot of different stuff that's pretty hazardous, right? If you don't do what you're told, you start losing body parts. Some of them important, right? And to take that one step further, they had a very strong sense of justice in the Middle Ages, okay? We look at historical concepts of justice as cruel and horrible. They look at our modern era, look down at us, as uncaring and overly tolerant. Right? Does anyone know what the penalty for telling a lie is? Anybody? We are going to remove the offending part. So if you get caught telling lies, we will cut out your tongue. For bathing, the boys get to go down to the river in the morning when the water's nice and cold. The girls get to go down to the river in the afternoon when the water's warmed up a little bit. What happens if you can't tell what time of day it is and you're caught at the river at the wrong time of day?
You lose an eye.
You're peeking Tom and then you burn out one of your eyes. Usually your left eye. Okay? Because this is the sinister side of your body. Okay? Now, here's a really good one. What is the penalty for theft? Whether it's a bag of gold or a piece of pie, what is the penalty for theft? They're going to cut off your left hand. Why your left? So that you can still be productive with your right. Because if they cut off both of your hands, you're worthless to society, right? So, they're going to remove the offending part. Now, how often do you think that happened? A lot? We have manorial of records that span over 100 years. The average was there was one case of theft about every 30 years. So every generation, there would be a time when there wasn't a guy walking around with only one hand, because every time there was, we could pull the kid aside and say, "You see him? And how he's only got one hand? And if I ever catch you stealing, we're going to do the same thing to you." Right? Hey, that's pretty serious, isn't it? All right? Now, why do you think they did that? Was it just because they were mean? It's because they believed if you stole something, you had to pay penance in purgatory and hell. So, by cutting off your hand, taking you to the blacksmith and cauterizing the wound closed, so that you are now an example to everybody, you are paying your penance during your life, and therefore have a better chance of going to heaven. Okay? So is it really that cruel? They were doing it because they cared about your eternal soul. Whether it was right or not, that's why they did it. So, children, obey your parents, right? It's really simple, isn't it? There's good reason, and this is an important lesson in life. Parents aren't doing things because we're mean. We're not saying be home by 10 because we're jerks and we just want to make your life difficult. We're telling you things because we did stupid stuff too, and we want you to be smarter than that, okay? Just like cleaning up your rooms, right? How many spiders do you think love to live on all the clothes in your floor, huh? Yeah. And it's like, oh, this shirt's not too dirty. But it's also Hobo City, right? Okay? There's good reasons for this. In the Middle Ages, 1 yard of cotton broadcloth cost 30 pennies. To put that in perspective, a medieval penny has the buying power of today's $30. Okay? So enough broadcloth to make one of you guys' shirts would run about $1,000. Okay? Fortunately today, fabric's a lot cheaper, but clothes are still expensive. And when they're on the floor, guess what? They're getting ruined. Even though it's slower, we're still doing it because we want you to have clothes. We want you to take care of your things and obey your parents, okay? Does it make a little more sense? How many of you have thought of it in those terms before? Okay. Let's move on to Ephesians 6:2.
Honor thy father and thy mother.
There's more of it.
Which is the first commandment
With promise, okay? So honor thy father and thy mother, for it is the first commandment with promise, right? So again, we're getting back to obey your parents, show them respect, right? What does it mean by it's the first commandment with promise? What do I get out of thou shalt not kill? Not really very much, right? Especially if the other guy doesn't follow. Okay? What do I get out of thou shalt have no gods before me? It's blunt, it's a command, there you go. But when we get to honor thy father and thy mother, guess what? You get something back out of that. Think about it. As you put something into that relationship, you get something back. Now, if you put negative into that relationship, guess what you get back? A really loud screaming match, right? Alright, and does it solve anybody's problem? No. But just think about it for a second and think, what if I showed my dad respect and acted like he actually knows something? What kind of a difference would that make in your conversation? It would probably make it go entirely differently, wouldn't it? What this is telling you is by putting something into that relationship, by putting positive into it, there's the promise that you will get that positive back. And that's a pretty good promise, isn't it? That's an invaluable little treasure that you guys can count. All right, let's go to 6:3.
That it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth.
Okay, and that's exactly what we just talked about, right? You show them respect, they start showing you respect, and things are going to be well with thee. And always bear in mind, we brought you into this world, right? Okay, now in the Middle Ages, that was a serious thing to contemplate, right? Child mortality was a pretty high rate. And the fact is, not all kids lived to be adults. It was actually a pretty small percentage. Depending on when and where you were, it could be as low as 3% or about 40%. And this, interestingly, is the most striking difference between our ancestors and us today. It's because our ancestors had to keep a little bit of an emotional detachment from their children, because they were most likely going to die. This passage is trying to remind us that by putting something into that relationship, there's at least something going on. Okay? And we have to kind of remember that too. I had kids that were my age die as teenagers when I was in high school. It happens all the time, doesn't it? And we have no control over it. So, as long as you're maintaining that positive relationship with your parents, with your friends, with your peers, there's always something left of you here. If you don't, hey, we're all gone eventually, and our memories are important. All right? Let's go on next.
And ye fathers provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and
Admonition.
admonition of the Lord.
Okay, here's the flip side of the coin, right, kids? This is saying, dads, don't threaten your kids. Don't keep them to within an inch of their life, at least 3 inches back. Okay? This is the flip side of that coin. Because as parents, we have to remember, you know what, we messed up too. We did things wrong too. And it's back to that, let's put something positive into this relationship. Right? Just reminding parents we have part of this equation. And it is important. Okay? I have to try and remind myself of this all the time too. Because there's times that you just want to scream at your kids. And the reality is, if you can show a little bit of understanding, if you can try to be more like Christ yourself, you're going to help put something back into that relationship. It's positive, right? It's important. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Okay. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling. Singleness of your heart as not.
Okay. You have to remember, in the Middle Ages, there was a social structure. There was the nobility, headed by the crowns. Then there were the middle class merchants. And then there were the free serfs. And at the bottom, there were slaves. Okay? And they were white. In case anybody wonders, slavery started with white people. This is saying as servants, slaves, to those who have someone above them. This is part of the social structure of the Middle Ages. This is one of the things that we're very detached from, because we have a concept of equality today. This is telling those who serve, you serve for the benefit of all. You serve to make things better for everyone. They had what they called the 3 estates. And there was constant argument about which estate was more important. You had the estate of the servant class, the lay person, who was the farmer, the tiller of the field, the weaver, the blacksmith, the people who produced and created things. They did so for the benefit of all. You have the clergy, who are there to ensure the safety and preservation of the souls of everybody. That's their job, make sure everybody possible gets up to heaven and be with the big guy, right? That's what their life is dedicated to. And then you have the estate of the nobility, the warrior class, the knights. And the concept was that they ruled the earthly plane in order to provide for the good of all, but with the permission of those ruled. And frankly, they failed miserably. Okay? That's the nature of humanity. Perfection is a goal, not a destination to which we can arrive. But that was the concept. This passage is what set that up. The concept that if you are a servant, then you serve as if you are serving Christ in your daily labors. Now think about that. Think about what kind of a radical change that would make in this country today if we considered our labors to be for the benefit of all. How many of you know somebody that frankly plays the system, sits at home, collects a welfare check, and does whatever they can not to go to work? I know several. And regardless of how much I try to prompt them, hey, you know, it really is rewarding to get out there and contribute to society, even if you just go out and volunteer, do something that helps other people. A lot of them don't do it, do they? Just think what would happen if people could embrace that piece of the Bible in their heart, and how it would change our world. Okay? So now we have to hit the flip side of this one. Give us the next verse.
Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart.
I got ahead. Think about it. If you really believe, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do my job today, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, because it's right. That's what God wants. It would change a lot of people's attitudes. That's something that I hope you guys can embrace, because we desperately need that in this country. We We desperately need people who not only know how to work, but know what it means to work. All right, let's go on.
With goodwill, doing service as to the Lord and not to men.
And that's really what it comes down to. You're not doing this for the guy down the street. You're doing this for the benefit of all. It's in the name of God and Christ.
Knowing that whosoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free.
Now, do think about that for just a minute. There are people who cruise, just kind of coast through life, right? Nothing ever really good happens to them. Sometimes pretty bad things happen to them, but they're just coasting. How many people do you know that are just genuinely good people? That anytime they're needed, they're there. They're out helping. They're doing everything they can to help somebody else. If they were down on their luck, how many people would be there to help them? Everybody that they had helped, huh? Really think about that. And there's probably times that, you could have gone and helped somebody. It's that positive relationship. It's that concept of helping out your fellow man. And eventually it comes back to you. I know for a fact that the giving that I've done in my life has come back to me time and time again. When I really needed help, when I was really down on my luck, there was somebody there just at the right time to pick me back up. And it's important. These are the kinds of things that make a big difference in people's lives. Okay? All right. Next person. Hi.
And ye masters do the same thing unto them which believe that in the Lord, that their master also will have an heirs first to get.
This is the flip side of the coin. This is reminding the leaders, this is reminding those who are in charge that you are in charge because you have permission from those that you are leading. And do it well. Do it right. Do it for the right reasons. And again, just think. If that verse was taken to heart, how would this country be different? Right? Who's happy with the way our country's gone the last couple of years? Nobody? There's been a lot of things that have hurt people like us just in the last 4 or 5 years, haven't they? Do you think these people have a concept of ruling for the good of the people? Because we touch upon this more later. But they begin to get detached. They begin to forget that they're here for the people that put them in their place of office, aren't they? And unless people kind of remind them of that sometimes, that problem only continues. Because most of them don't read this on a regular basis. All right, what's the next one?
Finally, my brothers, be strong in the Lord and in the Lord.
Without it, how strong are we? Here's where we start getting to the fun stuff. This really is the setup of the medieval world. This was the setup of the mentality. This is where they were coming from. So now we get to put on the whole armor of God.
Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
Now, there's an important word in here, and it's stand. That word appears several times in this passage, and it's very, very important. So let's have you ladies, I need to know which of these young men is the buffest, toughest, rowdiest. Well, and that one's staying here, so you're volunteer number 1. Come on out. Since you were trying to pass the buck, you're volunteer number 2. And pretty much here. Because I'm an equal opportunity educator. You come on out. All right, number one, you're going to come over here. Start, and you stand right there. Number two, there. Number three, we're going to put you right here. And number four, staying out here for a minute. Because we're actually going to be roommates. Okay. What's your name? Dallin. Dallin. Okay. I'm terrible with names. I can get in the head a lot, so forgive me. Andrew. Dallin, Andrew, Nathan. Kylie. All right. So, let's hear that verse one more time. We'll start rereading the lines. Yes. Wiles of the devil.
Put on the whole armor of God that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
Okay, what are wiles? Who knows what wiles are? Temptation? Kind of. Wile E. Coyote? Find anybody
Schemes.
something? It's trickery. Exactly. Exactly. Now, is the devil going to walk up and say, "Hi, I'm going to try and tempt you now"? Doesn't work that way, does it? Okay? If it was that easy, life would be easy. Okay? The wiles are things that look good to us. Sometimes it's like, well, you know, it's not really wrong. Or, it just looks really, really good. Or, I've even seen the, well, you know, really, I'm right on this. It's okay for me to do it. Right? That's what the wiles are, isn't it? Okay? If it was easy, if it was up front, it would be just say no, goodbye. And sometimes it is that easy. But the things that really get us, the things that really, really hurt us in the end, they're not that easy. Okay? They're that really cute boy that Dad wouldn't approve of. Such a nice guy, right? Huh? And it's that, you know, I'll get a cross added to that tattoo later. Right? Okay? It doesn't really seem wrong. It's just not really in the rules, right? That's where the wiles like to hide out. Okay, let's hear the next passage.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in places.
Okay, what does that mean? Okay, principalities were regions of power and control, right? Spiritual wickedness in high places. Boy, I walk into the Easy Way and I hear all about spiritual wickedness in high places, right? The reason this passage is important is in the Middle Ages they had a concept of a just war. A war that was in God's name. There was a really excellent example where King Louis VII, I think it was, there were a lot of Louis, made a 6-hour-long legal argument to the Holy Roman Emperor to justify his war with England, to show that it was a just war in the name of God. This was really important to them, okay? And it was amusing because usually the two warring parties would go to whichever clerical power that was in charge, and they would both make an argument of why it was a just war. So it was easy for it to be declared just war, and God would sort it out, right? But here's the other important part. There would be a lot of times, because of the way the society was structured, that I might have to fight my best friend in a war. It was based on fealty, which was typically made up through marriage arrangements. Remember, girls, you don't get to choose your husband. A lot of times that put people who cared about each other on opposite sides of a battlefield. You didn't want the war to be out of hate or malice because you cared about that other person. So the war had to be about spiritual wickedness in high places. It had to be against the forces of darkness, because otherwise you're committing murder, right? Which falls under thou shalt not kill. So in order for there to be a chance for your soul to have a path to heaven, you had to have your combat against something that was evil or wrong. This was an incredibly important thing to our ancestors. Okay, what's next?
Wherefore take unto God you the whole Wherefore take unto God you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand.
There's that word again, 2 more times. Stand, right? Here's where it starts getting important. Take upon the whole armor of God. So, what's the next passage? Where do we start?
Stand therefore, having the lion's girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness.
Put this on. Okay, what are the loins? Who knows what loins are? What?
They're like a skirt, kind of.
No, we are not going to girt our skirts. That's not going to work. What are loins? Who's cut up a deer before? You have. Oh, come on, guys. Nobody's butchered anything before? Who's heard of the back strap? Okay, set of muscles run right along the spine. And then there's a set on the inside too, right? And they control all this and all this, and they help us dance and do all our fun stuff, right? But they're also kind of important muscles. So we're going to girt them about with what? Our loins are girt with? Okay. We add a few other pieces. Who's heard the term rubbed the wrong way? Anyone heard that term? I have a really big scar right here from where a piece of armor took a great big chunk out of me once. It was rather unpleasant. So these are arming clothes. These are meant to pad you from your armor. Because if they're not there, guess what happens? You get rubbed the wrong way. Now think about this in society. How many times have you been around somebody perfect example. Have you ever been around somebody who is on the opposite side of the political world from you? And they're just really enthusiastic about what they're telling you, right? And you just really want them to shut up. They're rubbing you the wrong way, aren't they? Okay, Ella, can you start spreading that? Now, how many times have you been in a situation where you are really enthusiastic about something, and you might be rubbing somebody else the wrong way? Okay, put your arms through that hole. Okay, so what does this part represent? Remind us again.
Stand therefore, having the lion's girt about and with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness.
Okay, so we are girding our loins with truth. And we have to remember, truth is a funny thing. Lots of people talk about the truth. Not everybody really knows the truth, and it could be argued that nobody knows the truth. We're going to put this one on you. We're going to let you wear this one, because it's light and light. And closer by your ear. Like I said, we're going to be nice to you. All right? So, as we put this on, so we've started them with truth, and we have topped them off with righteousness, right? Okay, and now we get to move. Oh, you need some more. So now that we have a nice big whopping dose of righteousness, we're not going to put any on it. Frankly,
I'm not a righteous person.
yeah, your truth's a little light, but you're a righteous person. Glad you said it. All right. Okay, what's next?
And your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace.
Yeah, we're both wearing shorts.
Yes.
Rubbed the wrong way.
That was silly of you.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's yours. All right. So, there is a very important part to this. Why do you think that our feet, and therefore also our legs, are shod with the gospel of peace? We've actually already touched on this subject, but why do you think it's the gospel of peace? Any ideas? Has anyone ever heard of what was called the Cold War? Does anyone know the concept behind the Cold War? We really didn't like Russia at the time.
That's wrong.
It's all right. So your gospel of peace is a little backwards. So, in the Cold War, the concept was that we had some really, really big firecrackers. We like to call them thermonuclear weapons. And Russia also had some really, really big firecrackers. They like to call them thermonuclear weapons too. Since then, they've kind of gone to other places like Iran. But they're all really stable, so. But the concept was, if you shoot at me, then I shoot at you, and everybody dies. How effective is that? Not overly effective, is it? So, this is why this passage is important. Your feet are your base. How well can you fight if you don't have your feet and legs under you? Not very good. That's a good answer. Not very good. And here's the funny thing about it. When you're in armor, it's really difficult to float. So, if you... Now, tell you what, I'm just going to let you do up that top strap. How's that? So, without your feet under you, without your legs under you, you have no way of changing ground. You have no way of approaching your enemy or retreating. This is your foundation. This is what gives you a place to start from, to fight from, to live from. Without your legs and without your feet, you're helpless. And you have no way to get where you're going. And the same way in life and spirituality. You got this guy? Okay. In life, if you do not have a foundation of peace, you don't have anywhere you're going. If you're in a war and the object is not peace, then what are you fighting for? If you're going to put on a suit of armor, if you're going to go out and kill your fellow man, the goal has to be lasting peace. Because otherwise, you're fighting for the sake of fighting. You're causing war for the sake of war. You're killing for the sake of killing or for profit. And is any of that in God's plan? It's absolutely contrary to what God wants. Medievally, they were trying to find scripture to justify the need for war. This is the scripture they found. This is what they latched on to. Do you really want to put the legs on?
I don't know, sure. Sorry.
One? Okay. We're unsure of time. We're going to be nice to you again. All right, so what's our next passage? Now, real quick though, boys, we keep hearing the word stand. How does standing feel right now? A little different, isn't it? It's a little harder. Not too much for you. Okay, what's next?
Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked.
Fiery, not fury.
Fiery darts.
Fiery darts. Okay. Well, before we throw shields on these guys, we're going to arm them up just a little bit more. Okay? Since girls decided you were the butchest, toughest, meanest one, we're going to put this on you. That's got to feel pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah? You're like the toughest dude in the ward. That's pretty good. Well, at least the girls think you're tough. He was trying to pass the buck. He thinks you're the toughest dude in the world.
Can they fight after to see who really is?
The possibility is open.
They will be drugs.
You got this? All right, I do think we need to put a little armor on you. So.
Can I fight her? That's why I'm
That would
tough.
be you goddess chivalry.
Still know more with all this on. Like,
All right. Oh yeah, we'll give you one.
one.
Yeah, we're running the title. All right.
Is this the stuff you use when you fight in the World Championships?
Andrew, is it number 2?
Yeah.
That's my kit. The
So is there blood in it?
yes, actually it is.
In the helmet, yes, most sure.
Yeah. In fact, there's probably still some pretty good blood stains on the inside of the visor. So, all right. Okay, so we're adding the arms because really they are part of this section. Once you become proficient with your weapon, it's just an extenuation of your arm. Okay, our arm to hold. There we go. Incidentally, this is why sneak attacks were effective. Actually, I can sprint.
He could do a cartwheel.
But yes, the fact is, you have to have these things. Which we'll talk about later.
Teddy,
All right.
Ted, what if the top one of this one is undone?
Now, something else that would normally go on at this point. This is called the gorget. Now, normally we would be putting this on over the top. This is the heraldry for our local Southeast Idaho Fighting Club. And this is what we use when we go to the World Championship. Now, part of the reason for that, I'm going to use a quick example on this. Let's set this up. All right. When you're on a battlefield, it is very important to know who your friends are. So, this is the arms that I'm currently using as head of Azure Stone, which actually translates to Blue Rock. But this is the Dragon I've become known as the dragon for good reasons and other good reasons. This is my Masonic heritage, and this is the Azure Stone heraldry. How many of you have heard the term heraldry before? Anyone who's looked into genealogy should be somewhat familiar with heraldry. You have? That's your family coat of arms, right? Very specific